And it's amazing to see our local community coming out. There's multiple generations here tonight. It's amazing to see. And we're all here for one reason, our love of the ocean. Well, that's why we're here, and it's a big part of us and a big part of our life. So sit back and enjoy, and let's get into it.
Hi. Thanks, Huey. Good evening. My name's Simon. Thanks for coming, and what a treat to see this film and to have these two guys here. Chris Brock. McTavish.
Simon.
George, obviously his work is here. His incredible work is here. It's not really his style to show up to something like this, but that's cool. What a gift to give to us and to future generations to be able to look at not just the area, but just the evolution of surfing, but also the evolution of ways of capturing surfing. And not just, the thing about George is not just a kind of incredibly inventive engineering type mind, but also a beautiful artist. Like every frame of that film it's beautiful filmmaking. And that's kind of exciting to see. We don't really get to see that. We don't really get to, I think, truly appreciate that these days when you've just got a digital camera that can record just about anything in any light, in any conditions. George is dealing with a 16mm camera that he's built the housing for, designed and built, and he's got to break it down.
He rebuilt the camera. It was a newsreel camera with a can on top and a can on the bottom, and he repositioned the second can to sit side by side to make it small and compact. So he rebuilt the camera, then built the housing around it with follow focus, which was insane.
So you've got to get the exposure correct while he's in the water. A lot of the stuff's shot from land, but while he's in the water, he's got to get exposure correct, and he's got to get focus correct with guys that are moving around. And he's got 4 minutes of footage to shoot before he's got to go in, dry it all, rinse it off, rinse the salt off if you can, if there's fresh water around, dry it off, unload it in as much shade as you can possibly find, reload it, rebuild it. We're talking about ratchets and screws, and put it all back together, then jump off the rocks again at the point and go back out. Meanwhile, these guys, just surfing. Just surfing.
In front of those sequences, George would only shoot for 2 or 3 waves, even on the classic Lennox Head, and down tools is out there,
Yeah, like that's where hardly any got, he only filmed occasionally. But that on his back, he kind of tried to do that every day because there's a lot of hours out there. As Simon described how long it takes for the film to run through a little spool. There's a lot of hours out there. And there was always like a little bit off cuts, at the end, and he'd always film something going on. And over the years, he's let people put him in film clips and all those off cuts.
So from the start, like how does this happen? You guys are all up here. We'll talk about what up here was like then, eventually. But George comes to you and says, I want to make this film, or I just want to shoot this stuff I've been playing around with, like he approaches you, how's that work?
He came out in '64 when I was shaping Hayden Kenny's, and we became instant friends. And he came out in '65, '66, '67. This was '68. So, and he was already shooting stills from day one, and started fooling around with movies like '66, '67. But he got the serious rig going by '68. And the year before was plastic machines and 9'6" and 10-foot boards, you know. And that was '67 and '68. These are the first of the short boards. And we're feeling our way, you know, like you can see there's some pretty weird boards in there.
Arguably short. Some of them look pretty bloody long to me.
Yeah, sure.
Like early on, you know, the session at Burley, they weren't small boards.
Yeah, well, that one Russell was on, but he just come from, that was a brewer.
No, different Durford. It was
That's
Mike
it.
different Durford from Hawaii.
Yeah, that's right.
And he was the only guy that didn't go short. We were all chucking them by, getting shorter and shorter.
But then you made me an 8-foot board half through that winter.
Correct.
And Russell rode that.
Yeah.
And then you made him that yellow one with the 2 green stripes of foam in it.
Yeah.
And then he went and come third in the world title in
Puerto Rico, yeah,
on that board. That was like 8 foot then.
Yep, we were getting down. Yeah. So we just dropped it.
So you said this is '68, but this was shot in '68 or released in '68?
68 and 69.
So how long shooting? You know, basically, you know, there's a lot of, what, 2 months?
2 years.
2 years. So there's 2 years of footage.
Yeah.
So it really makes you appreciate the amount of effort and energy that goes into comparatively now, where you can just plumb, you know, 2 weeks you could shoot a movie with the technology that we have these days.
But George was still a professional lobster fisherman at that stage too. He was going back to Santa Barbara and running out in a boat, taking his traps out around Point Conception when nobody went. He was the only lobster fisherman north of Conception. Yeah. And every time there was a big swell, he had to race out quickly before the swell got up to save his pots. Whereas, say, Reynolds Yater, he was fishing off Rincon and Santa Barbara, but he wouldn't go around the corner. And George was all by himself. They do it quite well, making good money.
So we were talking about that today, Bob, and somebody said he'd just come from California. Your mate, with Reynolds Yater, and he was it Reynolds Yater used to fish too?
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
He used to crayfish too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Rennie. I saw Rennie in the States.
Yeah, that's
3 months ago.
That's right. Yeah,
he's a hero, mate. He's 93.
Yeah,
and he just shaped 16 boards, and he advertised, I'm doing 16 more Yater spoons. They sold in 1 hour.
Yeah,
1 hour, everyone was sold. Then he went and shaped them.
that's amazing.
93-year-old. He's the first shaper.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
And I think he was a big inspiration to George in a lot of ways too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Totally. He's a real gentleman.
it's unreal.
So the first sequence that we see in the film, and obviously, you know, it's not necessarily filmed in sequence, but the first sequence where you're in the car and you pull up at Broken, and you're surfing out at Broken there, right? That bit of footage, like, I mean, first of all, how good is a car park that is a bitumen? I don't miss a dirt car park.
Well, it was a dirt road in the Broken then.
Everything was dirt.
Yeah, it was dirt.
Dirt road. It looked like was there a coast road at that point here?
Yep, dirt road. Yeah, dirt road between Lennox and
Allen.
and then we first hit the hills, what do they call it, just the north end of the flats coming from Lennox to Byron. There was a bit of bitumen up there, but then the rest was just the dirt.
But it was where the coast road was now. Because in that aerial shot, it's hard to see if there's actually even a road.
Yeah, there was no coast road around the point.
No.
You went over North Creek.
Okay.
You
So
went
it
over North
back
Creek,
way.
yeah. In the 6-pack that we showed here of the short movies, if anyone was here, there's a shot when we go around the corner in George's in the old Chev, and you look down on land as you come around. George would always say, this is when we lived around Gary in '69. When you come into Lennox, you go, it feels good to be here. Because he loved that length in the wave, like Rincon. Or Angari, it's a great way, but you just get wound up and it's all over. Yeah, like that's why I love Lennox, and I settled Lennox instead of Angari. It's because of that fact. It just keeps going, you know.
And just remember that George called this movie his home movie. It's my home movie. That's what he called it. And they shot over 2 years, edited over another year and a half.
At that time, that's a question. Someone mentioned boulders. I had a question when I saw that shot overhead, and I was wondering, was anyone surfing boulders? Were you guys surfing boulders at all? Were you surfing flat rock? Any of those other spots?
Sure. No, we're surfing boulders, yeah.
Yep.
It was a neat old road around there. It was all like pebblestone.
Yeah.
Around the coast. You come off North Creek where the road is today. There was some cow bales there,
That's right, yeah.
and you turned off there and went down the boulders. Yeah.
And what about the old winking cow? Remember, there was a dairy as you come up on North Creek Road, and it had a cow, a big Jersey cow, winking, and we'd pull in there for lunch after surf on Lennox in the morning. We'd get a packet of biscuits and green bottled milk.
Green milk.
They sold it as green milk.
And Byron Bay you could get, it was unreal, they had square bottles, because I used to come up as a kid, you know, in the early 60s, and they had chocolate, lime and strawberry, square flavoured milk.
In bottles.
Yeah. You had to walk out.
I actually don't think these guys have grown up since.
And
It's like, you know, you're still lighting boards on fire, Bob? What's going on? Like a rat bag. A couple of rat bags.
Oh yeah.
So bad.
And Brocky, the fact that you're still living on the point now, 55 years later, I think is incredible. Yeah. You still surfing great too.
I don't know how I've done it.
Oh, it's insane.
I've never had
You're
any
an
money,
alien,
but I
old
always,
bug.
I've never had any money, but I always seem to, I just take that path, you know, that I like to walk, and good luck seems to come your way.
Yeah. It's fabulous, Brocky. So cool.
So this little sequence when you're out at the point, I mean, obviously I grew up here and I you know, it just took me straight back to my childhood. There were a few more people in the water, not as many as now, but...
Look, it's at the fence. There's a fence there.
The old fence is there, yeah. That's
that old
Easter.
fence, yeah.
Jack Easter, the Lord Mayor, he owned the land on the point.
And because we used to come in by my old house, the last house on the point,
Foxy's.
and there was barbed wire to keep the cows in. And I remember we used to bring a hammer with us, and they had it with those little claw nails, you know, like this. We'd take it out, drive the cars out, nail it back up so no one knew you were out there, because there was still a few surfers coming out. And you could get the cars out far enough that they couldn't see you. They had to walk out the point to see you were there.
And there's a little creek in the corner, and we used to drink fresh water from the creek. And watercress, fresh, beautiful watercress was growing in the creek. So we'd be munching that. Just water and watercress for lunch.
Don't try that now.
I remember there was that day that the guy got hit by the shark in there. I think Libo were having a contest down the beach, and I think it might have been Gromfest was on. And it was called off, and it was around lunchtime, and I walked out the point, and my mind went back to then, of when you had your first surf, you walked into town, got some milk and some...
Bickies.
Some bickies. What were they?
Donuts.
Butternuts.
Butternuts.
Yes, butternuts.
Remember the butternut boys.
He'd come back, you know, to the point. I remember I looked at it and there wasn't a soul out because the shark, and I saw it. At this time of day, that's the first time I've seen that since 1968. But I think David Rasta told me that he came and looked at it soon after that, and he went, wow, and he went out, there's no one out, and he went out.
The shark. Well, see, the third guy along, that was me, and then that's Gary Keys.
Greg Weaver.
And Weaver came from California. There's 3 or 4 waves of Greg in the film. And he logged with Greg Morley, Don Morley.
Don Morley, yeah.
And they had a couple of Larry Strada copies of
that's what I ended up with.
Yeah, it was Strada.
Remember they bought one for Nat and he didn't want it?
Yeah.
That was that pocket rocket I was walking out with, they called it the pocket rocket. And it was a guy named Larry Strada in
He was
Hawaii,
copying Brewers.
Yeah, well I think he actually was shaping with Brewer doing it then. But you know what it had? It had a nice roll
Roll
underneath, and
front
you
end.
could kind of roll. You could kind of roll into your turns on that.
You could.
Yeah. So I was lucky because the first board was like the tracker, and it had the big imitation Greenough thing, the big rake, you know. And the first wave I took off at Lennox Point with consequence, honest to God, the board just locked in a track. And I looked up, and there was this huge lip, and it threw out and broke the nose off the board. Broke about this far down, broke the nose off. And then I didn't have a board. I think I was borrowing Bob's. I think I might have broke one of those. And then Morley
You were
took
good at that.
And then
We said
I remember when Kenny Adler broke a free stringer.
I saw him do it too. He went right through the board at the point.
That's right.
Wave broke on him, and he just went straight through the board.
Three
I
stringers.
was standing there watching him. But that green board we destroyed. Like when Morley and Weaver arrived, they unpacked their boards at San Juan's, and they were shaping there. So I quickly grabbed that green blank, and I made a copy of their Stradas, which were copies of Brewers. And so I wrote 2 waves on that thing, and it just every time you run into a cutback, it would roll over, just glue down on the deck because it had high-low rails. And on the second wave, I said, this is the worst dog I've ever ridden. And the thing just bounced into the rocks, ding, 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 ding. So up on the beach, jump on it, destroy it, tore it in half. I never wanted to ride that surfboard again, and nobody was going to get cursed by the thing.
Yeah, but you grabbed the fin off it. Grabbed the
Fin
fin
is
off it.
beautiful. Thanks, Brocky.
Oh, never throw that things like that away.
No, it was
Not there. Yeah, like I didn't have any, money to buy blanks and that. I remember I made a board like the Greenough hulls, and it kept staying up on the rail. I went, oh shit. And so I got the grinder and I ground right around the rail and peeled all the glass off. And then I reshaped it, and that's the one that I'm surfing in the second half at Pippi Beach, and
Yeah,
it was
that's
the reshape
nice
that went up on the
board.
face.
That was
The outline of that board.
Yeah,
is
it's
beautiful.
nice, yeah.
Pretty.
When he's got the red boardies on.
Yeah. And the Ted Spencer board, that was 4'8", and it was just George's spoon drawn around and sawed out of the blank, and then he shaped it and went out and surfed it. Like,
He was ripping, wasn't he?
He was
like,
killing it.
Really.
Yeah, but Ted was one of the best surfers in the world then.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he had a mind for it.
That's it.
You were saying, Chris, that he was getting paid to surf.
Yeah, I think they're $20 a week or something.
Yeah. Was it Shane at the time?
Yeah, Shane.
The white
and
tights.
Russell did too.
Russell, yeah, they got paid, yeah.
And then Batty ended up, Nicola was giving Batty $20 a week too. So
$20. They go a long way though, $20.
In those days,
Yeah.
I remember when we lived in Wattigos, it was $20 for, we all put in for food and rent, $20 a week.
Yeah.
Living at Wattigos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible, wasn't it?
That was 1968, and then earlier it was 2 shillings a day you could survive there when I used to come up on the train.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, 10 bob a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lady, old lady across the road, Mrs. McGettigan, across the road from, yeah, that's right, across the
Pie
road
shop.
from the Northern. And she made her own pies in there.
Insane.
She had a big wood table out the back, and every day after she made pies, she'd sand it, and it had a big groove in it like this.
Yeah.
But we'd walk in there at night, and for $1 shilling, you get pie and peas.
Yeah.
And you get some bread and butter too. Oh,
Yep.
so good.
And you can get sausages and veggies across at the Northern at lunchtime. But the Wattigos girls used to work there. Yeah.
It's-
Wattigos, she was
that's
a
it.
cook.
And it was over, like the counter lunch time was over,
Yeah.
but they used to have
Out
it
the
left
back.
over.
Yeah, out the
We'd
back.
come in late because we'd been surfing, and they'd take us to a room out the back and feed us. We'd always get each, must do much for you.
Just a
It
bowl
was so good.
for a
So
dinner,
good.
10 cents.
Yeah, like they were all the Islander ladies, all related to the Wattigos,
Yeah, they're all
and that,
Wattigos,
that
yeah.
lived in Wattigos.
Yeah.
Then they moved them out of there, I think in about 62 or 63.
63.
They used to live there, the Wattigos and the Kudises, and have like all hobby farm in there with all little gardens and everything, and they had their water
Nice.
stream out. It's just paradise for them.
Wow.
So the evolution of the boards during this. So that first session, you're broken, then you go to the point. Then there's that sequence of Burley with the swimming pool.
Yeah.
And it's pumping.
Yeah.
And you pull off that nice, very modern cut back there.
Yeah,
that one.
Well, that's what you were trying to do, imitate George, you know, those tracks that George took.
Yeah.
That leads to the modern surfing, you know. I really love that. That's seeing that one rider, Bonza Bob, in there, Robert Keneally.
Yeah.
And he's really using his body, you know, with his, you know, that's starting to bring in the modern surfing techniques, you know, are starting to come with that.
And we're throwing out the old longboarding technique.
That's it, which we still have.
Yep.
You know, with the torso more forward instead of across the board.
Well, you can kind of see that in that
You can.
that earlier, and I don't even know if it's sequential, but you can see it earlier. That's the surf out the point. You guys, particularly even you at Broken, you're riding so far up the front of that longer board.
Yeah.
It's like you're yearning to get rid of half the back of that board.
Exactly.
You did later that year.
Yeah. And then you could see the fins were up a long way. That's what I was sitting with Dickie earlier saying, the fins are up a long way. Yeah, that's why a lot of times we're pulling off and it's pulling that front rail in a little bit too much for you.
But we're trying to get our foot over the fin.
That's
it.
it.
We knew that's where the power and control was.
Can you talk to me about this? And you were both doing it a little bit. I don't know if anyone else noticed it, but it's like, particularly in that early session when you were pulling off, you were doing these like hand flip, like little styling.
A little bit of
all doing it.
bit of Phil Edwards, bit of midget, you know, the leftovers of the 60s.
No, it was pretty good. I liked it.
Yeah.
You had there was a couple of that second session out the point.
Oh, yeah, real fucking
what a day that
It was the best day ever.
Good, bit more east in the swell
Yeah.
and a low tide. And you were doing.
Trying to slow the board down.
Yeah. Well, you had that board then that was scooped out at the front.
Yeah, keep it lighter.
Yeah, exactly.
Broke her in half herself.
See, he was able to ride that back good. He got some nice turns where he went. I heard all the crowd go, oh, when you went really high.
Yeah, but I kicked out. I should have kept going. That one that keeps screwing.
Yeah. Like that's that one at Burley where Bob kicks out. You know, you know.
Oh, when the board spins out,
you
you
see
see
going. You're fine. It should have.
Yeah. I do it all the time. Bloody idiot. I still do that. I think there's a better one behind.
Yeah.
Actually, Chris, there was one at Burley that you got a little bit caught behind, and then you let your board go.
No, that was Bob, I think.
Yeah, I got the little quick barrel on one.
Yeah.
No,
that was the one I was
but you got
talking
caught
about.
behind.
Oh,
one.
yeah,
And
mine
if
too.
you pulled up, you
Little
would
bit
make
I
it
would've
any
made
day
it.
of the week.
Oh, that was good, yeah.
It
was
you
hot.
lost your board, but it just reeled off.
Yeah.
But you were riding probably it was like an 8 foot, 9 foot board.
Yeah.
Remember,
8 foot.
No, they were only 8 footers. We never went over 8 foot again from 68.
Yeah. No,
So
that's
then,
right.
and the boards you were riding at the point, the first section, they seemed a bit more like displacement hully kind of.
Greenough.
A bit round.
We thought George's bowl up front.
But then later on, they
necessary.
So when you went down to, and you're riding longboards when you went down to Snapper, and that was Gary Keys.
Yeah, that was the 8 footer too.
That's a great section of the movie when
it is.
when they go down to Evans and
Authentic bomb
camping
ride.
there.
And the
George
hammer jet.
got that shot of a bomb coming
Isn't
out.
that insane?
I know, we've seen it happen, and George said, oh, wow, I want to get a shot of that. And we crawled over in the sand hills. Yeah, that was great, and then it happened.
And the so a question. It's a great time-lapse shot where you're setting the fire up there in that little camping scene, and the Uncle Toby's oats, you know, no milk, just going for it. It's just such a great slice of what just hits you in the heart. That. What board was that you were pulling out from behind the tent? It's got it had the funky deck patch on it.
Yeah, that was the one that Bob made me. And it had the dick patch like that, eh?
Yeah.
That's how I used to always do my dick patches.
Yeah.
You were just not into shape. And then that
You made that board, Bob.
Yeah.
It was pretty small, that session.
Was 8. It was 8.
Right.
No, the surf though.
Yeah.
Little way.
And then there's that great shot where old mate's on a horse. Can you tell me that story?
Yeah, well, that apparently they knew that we were coming,
The Russians?
Yeah, but we decided to leave. We'd finished our stay, and the Air Force knew that we were camping there illegally. And the old guy he used to ride the fence. That's that guy. He rode the fence. Actually, Joy's parents knew him because she comes from Evans. That used to ride the fence, and he said to us, "Oh, lucky you was leaving, boys, because they were coming to get you today." It's amazing. There was all quicksand over the back. I remember walking along and falling in the quicksand. It was great. Yeah.
So I've got a question about the way George filmed, having that also just watching you guys pack up, and Chris, you're putting like the exhaust pipe
It's horrifying.
into the back of the car.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
George let all the tyres down, so it goes like a tank over it. We had to pump up all the tyres at the garage too.
So the idea is, when you're driving that particular car on sand, on a sand track, you just go as far as you can go, and then you stop and get out and walk the rest of the way.
Yeah. But that time we drove all the way to the fence.
Yeah,
That's why we
that.
took that track. Yeah.
And when George was shooting that, was he like, just stop, I'm going to get out and run up here, stay in the car, and then I'll wave a towel
Yeah, he probably
and then
did.
come through?
Yeah, he
The
probably
director
did.
talking here.
Yeah.
Well, that stuff's not easy to do.
No, it's to get it how you want it.
Yeah, and also you're driving a bloody, what is it, a Holden
FJ.
FJ on sand
Yeah.
with no muffler.
Yeah. I think Gary would have been driving that probably. He was a little bit older than me.
You were very young, Rock.
How old
I'm
are you?
80.
We're 5 years
75.
apart.
5 years apart?
Yeah, and George and I are 8 years apart. So
He's 83.
He's
So
83.
I'm 80. Chris
You
is
said 2 years to
35.
shoot this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you were what, 20?
I was 20 or 21 when it came out in 1970. And like by then, we were riding like 5-6 boards and stuff.
Yeah. That's the thing. When George movie was released, and Gary and Chris showed it around Sydney and Australia, it was obsolete. Nobody wanted to watch it because the boards were so big and old. Isn't that sad? It's a beautiful movie, but
It's what makes it beautiful now, though, Bob.
it makes it good now. Yeah,
That's the great thing about a movie is it's forever.
right.
It becomes a time capsule as well as just being, it's not just about right then.
Well said, Simon. Well said.
How does it feel when you watch that? I
I want to go surfing.
I'm sure there's a few more feelings, but yes, doesn't it? Everyone. When you see it,
I feel privileged myself.
super
That
privileged.
George, I've known with George for the whole decade, basically. But when Rocky logged in...
From Wind and Sea days. Like
Wind
that
and
was
Sea.
our link when me and Gary come up here.
Yeah.
And you guys had the free room at home and you were so nice enough.
Rented the house in Porticos.
Yeah.
I was getting money for the first time in my life. For 1 year in my life I had money because I did a design for Maury Popes in California, and these big fat checks were lobbing every month. So I wanted to spend it as fast as I could. So I rented the best house in Porticos, and everyone aboard, party time. I managed to get rid of all that money really quick. And, old Jack Easter, who owned the Point, said to George, "Why don't you guys buy the headland?" I think it was $4.5 he wanted for 2.5 acres. And George came and said, "Bob, what do you reckon? Both got the money, a good crayfish season, and I'd got the money from Maury Popes the first time, the only time in my life I had money." And I said, "Nah, we'll find somewhere better than Lennox." And I spent the next 30 years living there. George still lives the other end of the beach. Rocky still lives there. There was no better place than Lennox. It's still around.
What I've been saying for decades to myself, I think, oh shit, what's going to happen when they find out about it?
You're seeing it.
You're seeing it.
You're seeing it. You're seeing it now. Another. The later on. Look at that, Bob.
With a grin.
Look at that.
Gee, I'm trying to.
It's a beautiful restoration too.
Yeah, I don't think this projector is good as
This projector is not
not
great,
the best.
but
Yeah,
some
restoration.
of the footage feels like it was shot yesterday.
Yeah.
Like it's so clean.
Kodachrome stills.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh, yeah, Kodachrome.
So that period where one of my favourite shots in the whole movie, from a filmmaking standpoint, is that sort of sunset shot of Chris surfing. It's actually, I thought at first, I didn't know if it was at the pass or Double Island Point or something, but it's a tracking shot. It's what we call a tracking shot, where the camera's moving on the shore. It's right before the cats get chucked off the roof.
George,
Everyone tries that one once in their life, don't they? But
where was that, Brock? It was at the
it
pass.
was the past.
Yeah, it's the past, yeah.
We
The
drove on the
mountains look
beach.
bigger, but he's shooting it on a long lens, and it's a tracking shot. He's moving, which is a pretty beautiful shot. He's moving along with you on the wave, and I asked you about that this morning when I saw you, this other, whenever it was I saw you, and you said the Holden was on the beach.
Yeah,
He was shooting out of the boot of the
Yeah, out of the back seat.
out of the back.
I think
seat.
Gary was driving,
Yeah.
and George was in the back shooting.
I mean,
Just following me along.
that's a really difficult shot to get.
It's
beautiful. Really beautiful. And then the little sequence there at Palmer's channel.
Yeah,
There.
yeah.
I mean, that looks like it could have been shot yesterday.
Yeah, truly.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Sharp.
that's what we used to have them feast often.
Sunday feast.
Yeah. George would buy some sausages, we'd have barbecues, and he'd always buy some chocolate and chip ice cream.
And Mrs. Honeypot had the shop, the little house across the road.
I remember when the cops come one searching our place for pot. Someone said, we were nearly out of honey, we were having a cup of tea, And someone said, oh, we've got to visit Mrs. Honeypot, to get some more honey. We used to call her Mrs. Honeypot. The cop came, pot, where's she live?
Her house is still there.
And there's in
Yeah.
that little picnic shop there by the water, there's a bassinet there.
That's my daughter Renee. Yeah.
Well, I went to school with Renee.
Yeah.
There you go. How incredible is that?
Yeah, fantastic.
So that was my problem. I had 5 kids. So I've been working my bum off all my life. The finance was Brockies.
I think it's a
Well,
problem.
that's what Dad said to me, I've worked all my life. I said, oh, what do you reckon I should do in life, Dad, when I left school? And he said, I don't know. He said, I've worked all my life and I still seem to be at square one. He said, I think life's about enjoying what you like doing.
Yay.
So I always good on Dad.
Rocky Senior.
Yeah. Dad, you come to my place once and met my dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A long time ago. A planet far, far away.
Yeah, he was great. These last years, I used to get him for 20 odd years. A lot of times I stayed in that point house because my dad loved these 2 trips a year up there and stay a few months each time. Everyone got to know him, everyone loved him. He was like the dad to so many kids.
Yeah.
Because there's so many broken families there in the middle of the city.
Like the head, Kevin.
Brennan, yeah. The amazing surfers come out of there for
Sure,
how
yeah.
shitty the waves were.
And what a lovely audience. I can't see any of you,
was
but thank you so much for being quiet. It makes such a difference.
There was actually a kid at the Gromfest from Bondi won one of the sections last year.
Oh, yeah.
Gromfest, yeah. Just,
So, I just want to express what watching the film. It's 2 years of the shortboard revolution. It's things were coming down. And we're just getting to understand how to have your back foot over the fin, and we were struggling. How do you achieve that with an 8-foot board? So you're getting shorter, or you weren't moving the fin forward, and it's really got a tremendous amount of history in this film. I mean, monumental steps. Because on a global scale, there were no one else doing that. It was still longboards all around the world. They were just starting to get off them. We'd had 6, 8, 10 months off them, and we had manoeuvrability. We were standing in one spot mainly, a little bit of shuffling forward. But then in another 12 months after that, we got rid of bowls and it was all flat bottoms and hard down rails, and so things were tracking through really quickly.
You can feel it when you watch you guys surf the boards that are bigger.
Yeah.
You can see you pushing and catching edges because you're wanting to push the boards further. On that though, Bob, the section where George is in the States, you know, and he drives his big, the Led Zeppelin down to the beach with the camera mounted in the back, and he goes on the funky boat out to Channel Islands. And it's, what's his name? Nelson or something.
Yeah,
Ricky Nelson's riding that yellow board, right? You can see those boards are gunnier. Was that shot later, earlier?
69.
That would have been the winter.
Because there's a real shift in the style of boards and these surfing. I mean, the California waves are weird comparatively to waves around here. They're sort of slopey and slow.
Yeah, it's funny that you talk about that because when that bit come on, I was with Dick. I'm kind of talking to Dickie Hill for a little bit, comments and that. And I said that bit really did influence me a lot on board shape because I was having a little bit of trouble with the Greenough soft rail. You know, the holes we were making, they were staying up on the rail too long.
Yeah.
And so that was the board that I ripped all the glass off, I said before, and reshaped it, made it a little bit harder towards the tail, not so rolled, and then you got a bit of resistance and you got somewhere out of a turn.
You can see that guy, Ricky Nelson, was on his back foot a little bit more. Yeah, those boards looked gunnier.
You had brewer influence, so stiff tail rockers but very narrow.
Yeah. Was that a Bradbury?
John Bradbury is the shaper.
Yeah. Of that Nicky Nelson like that.
Yeah. And the same with Danny Hazard's.
Yeah.
They were very
Danny
stiff
would have been
rockers.
a Cunders, wouldn't it?
Probably
it was a
about
hole.
that. Yeah, Michael was into it by then. Yeah.
But it's funny that a lot of people have really embraced those really soft holes at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of shapers in the States kind of doing that.
Very
kind of
little.
thing. Yeah, that's it. There's a few guys here that ride them in the past and stuff around.
Highly frustrating.
Yeah.
Very frustrating surfboards.
Yeah.
Very hard to ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably. Well, they just don't get
Yeah,
going.
I just made a mal with a real lot of roll in the bottom.
And most
And
males are
when I
different
first
things.
rode it, I went, oh, fuck, Chris, you've gone too far. Sorry. You've gone too far. But then I went, no, you're going to learn how to ride this. And staying right in the centre over the stringer, more the drop knee turn.
Great.
Brought back all old things that I did
from
years
the
ago.
early 60s.
But the thing just sits up and planes like effortless.
Yeah.
When there's any chop. So there's good points. You've just got to surf around.
Yeah, how to ride.
Yeah, but I was determined to ride it properly, and I'm still kind of starting to get it now. It's
You will.
Yeah.
There's also an element to this, to when you watch this film, seeing you guys out in the water and the joy that you could see on your faces when you're out there. And it's not even like even when someone else is taken off on a wave, you catch someone else looking and they've got a smile on their face as well. And that sort of shared experience is beautiful to watch. It makes me feel nostalgic. I mean, I've surfed with both of you guys at different times through my life. But just even with my relationship with this place and my relationship with all the people that I've grown up surfing with, and there's probably a lot of people here I've been surfing with, but that kind of shared joy, it really hit home watching this film, I think, because there didn't seem to be that sort of cutthroat level of competition to actually just get a fucking wave.
Yeah, just sharing everything.
You know, so that was really beautiful to see.
Yeah, there was progress without competition. There was progress with cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
A very beautiful force. Nice to cooperate and share.
Kind of getting off on each other's stoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's nothing better than seeing you make it a good ride, in my opinion.
Exactly.
You know, like it's even feels better, and especially if they don't get many good waves, you know, and you see them on a good one.
Yeah,
You know, it's awesome. You know, that's what surfing for me really is to do with my friends, the joy of my friends. It's always been like that, always will be.
Yeah,
So, sort of on that as well, like, you know, the fact that, I mean, if the point's breaking at all, there's 4 people with a camera filming someone out there as the coach or a mum or a dad or something like that, you know, and it sort of used to be surfing in a lot of ways. The counterculture nature of surfing was you did it to get away from your parents, right? You know, I surf with my kids, I love it. But, you know, that element and the idea of someone filming you surfing at all.
Scary.
Yeah, but also like,
It's not scary with yours.
rare as hen's teeth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think in my childhood growing up here, I've got like 2 photos of me surfing. I don't think my mum's ever seen me surf. So, like, the idea of actually getting footage of you surfing now is like, you can go and buy a GoPro, which like basically George built one and put it on his back in his film. And people paddle around with them in their mouths and stuff on their surfboards and wherever else they want to put them. They're probably 30, 40 bucks or something. I don't know what they are now. They're, you know, just more plastic. There's not many people that grow up surfing now that don't grow up being aware of what they look like the whole time when they're surfing. And I find it kind of fascinating and interesting for guys like you to suddenly be like, oh shit, all this stuff that's what I actually look like.
Yeah.
Right? When George is going through that footage, the idea of not really being aware with evolution, but going through an evolution of surfboard design and trying to push the sport in different directions off a feeling and not actually seeing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I often wonder when I see 20 cameras at the point or whatever, whether or not there's that same sort of pleasure, because I think there's definitely always that pleasure no matter what of the feeling, but the feeling was the bigger part of it then. You know, your designs and shifts in design were about what you felt.
And what the wave was doing. It's all about the wave in that era. And you were trying to, I mean, we were hunting for the barrel and we were slowly getting there and the whole barrel era.
That was very evident, Bob,
We slowly
in your footage.
Well, we were hunting it, yeah. But we've also had, when George named the roundhouse, he called that a manoeuvre.
Yeah, that round, like this, cut back.
Yeah, so we had the roundhouse, you know, and we had bottom turn. Like now, I never do a bottom turn. I top turn and start setting things up. But through that era, it was all about, right through the mid-70s, was trying to get some speed down the face and then drive it around and project along the line. Now we do far better by top turning and setting it up and then pick your line. But
Yeah, but you were figuring it out.
it was all about...
Not based on seeing it.
No.
You were figuring it out. You might have seen Chris do something like that, or you might have seen George, and you're going, look at the way George is doing
George.
it. Yeah. But you're doing it off a feeling.
Yes. But we had a picture of George doing a roundhouse and said, I want to do that roundhouse. And so we
It's like that one at Burley that you say, I have to make that bit, you know, and then nosedive the last bit. But wrap on an 8-foot board, being able to do that.
We'd seen George's lines already for 3 years.
Yeah.
4 years, 64, 67. 4 years we've been watching George every winter and doing these lines, and we were still riding longboards in our roll bottoms. And
Yeah, so you were all them years at Noosa, Bob.
Yeah, I was at Noosa.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask Bob. Yeah, what did you think when he rolled up? When you see him, with your first impressions of him?
the Lennox, you know,
George at Noosa.
I was
Back
shaking.
in those days. Yeah.
Hayden's shop was right on the beach at Alexandra Head. Algie Grubb, remember Algie? Algie was the sander, and he came racing at the shaper and he said, Bob, get over the beach now, quick, George is surfing. He'd been around for a week, there'd been no swell.
Yeah.
So I dropped tools, raced across the beach, dust flying everywhere. George drops in, and he was drop bottom turns, but he did a bottom turn and a hard driving turn up into the roof, out on at the shoulder, roundhouse, back off the wall, down and around and went, oh, that is the future of surfing.
Unreal. That's what I wanted. I wanted that question answered. The whole time when I rang you up to join us, that was the main thing. I wanted to ask you that question.
That's it. That's what we're going to do, surfing.
Yeah.
And so straight away I made one, you know, like I made a 4'8", just the same as Ted did.
Yeah.
And Russell Hughes and I went across and tried to surf at big little Alexandra heads. They're so useless and it's just goo, goo, goo. If we'd taken the tea tree or national,
Yeah, where the wave had enough power to
drive, it would have been a different story. But we love Nicky Dora.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was the nose riding era.
And
And that had only really just come in, like
now
the late
it's coming
50s.
on. He was the kid, you know,
Yeah.
getting better and
Yeah.
better.
Because, like, I was lucky enough to, I think someone told me you might be making a few of them. I had a Foley board.
Yeah,
It was my second board, and it was 7 foot long.
yeah.
There was a guy from Santa Cruz.
Yep,
It was a
that's
surf
Jim
movie,
Foley.
American surf movie.
Yeah,
And
Jim
it was
Foley.
7'6", Jim
Yep,
Foley.
yeah.
And
I
I
had one
got,
too.
it used to be Ward and Dillon at Bondi.
Yes.
Noel Ward and
Noel
Scott
and
Dillon.
Noel.
And Scott Dillon moved and followed Barry Bennett and Gordon Woods to Brookvale.
Yeah.
And Noel started making them still in Bondi. He stayed in Bondi, made it. And I went up to him and said, "Oh, Noel, can you make me a Foley board?" And he made me one, and heaps of the kids got them after that.
Yeah.
And one day, you talk about having pictures of yourself. I was so lucky. There was this guy set up on the beach in front of the drain pipe at Bondi. You know, it's always a good bench set up. And he was taking some pictures, and then he asked me my name when I come out, and he wrote it down, and he come around with 2 pictures he had of me. The first one, I was only quite little. I had a woolen shirt on. My dad used to make me wear them in winter, you know, so I
In the
didn't
water.
in the water, so I didn't get. Old lady, I told him he'll get a chill in his liver. Make him wear a shirt. But anyway, you can see how small I was on the first wave because I'm standing, kind of walking the little board. And then second wave, the second shot, all you can see is my hand and the nose of the board sticking out of the tube. Clean. I couldn't believe it. It's
What,
amazing.
62?
On that little, about
62, 60.
around then.
Yeah.
Huh?
It
Yeah,
did.
because that was my second board.
I shaped the Foley board 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's what someone was telling me, yeah.
I'm going to make a few more.
You know, and I was lucky enough to say I grew up with this guy named Harry Nightingale. So some people might know of him. He used to be on Bondi Rescue. He was the big Indian fella. I kind of grew up with him. And his dad was a lifeguard at Bondi. Because they were from Ceylon, from Sri Lanka, the family, so they were dark skinned. And when the Duke come out here, Harry's dad was a real waterman, and he got on with the Duke, and they made some boards together.
Wow.
And Harry's still got one.
Man, that's...
Yeah, the redwood, and you look down and it looks like a Greenough spoon. It's bold at the, it's boaty at the front and it gets flatter. But it's only about 6'6", and it's made out of like solid redwood. And they had another one that they shaped and they lent it to an exhibition and never got it back. That was a little bit longer.
Wow.
So I really think that they shaped the board size to the bit of wood that they had a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because we sold a board, was lucky enough, someone took it to Honolulu and sold it at one of those auctions. There's a board George and I made together.
That was crazy.
We got 20 grand for it, I couldn't believe it. The bloke bought it, it was a terrible board. It was one of them edge boards, but I guess he's got it up on the wall. Apparently he owns Circus LA. It was like painted. I painted it with spray paint so that it wouldn't deteriorate on the boat. I had it on the sailboat when I come over with George. And it kind of looked like circus colours, like it was red and blue. And anyway, so apparently, what's his name at the auctions? He was here.
Randy Rarick.
He tried to give it a polish up and the paint started coming. So he left it. But anyway, the guy paid 20 grand. We kind of got on the auction. It was online, you could watch it. I got blown out by that because Sean Thompson's only went for 8 grand and he won the World Tide Lunch and had his shorts and everything. There's this boy that he's like 20 grand. That's Greenough's name, see? Yeah. But anyway, at that auction, why I brought this up, at that auction there was 2 boards they went for 5 grand each, and they were from South America, and they were dated in the 30s.
Wow.
And one of them was the wood frame with the plywood on, was that construction, which come from the plans before the war out of Popular Science magazine, and then the other one was made out of balsa, and they were only both about six cents long, you know.
Yeah.
So once again, I think it's the
It's been
size of wood they had.
Yeah. But no one had an intent to surf like
Oh no.
surf the way vertical way George did until we
exactly.
saw George.
Exactly.
Then we decided we needed to use the vertical elements
That's
of the
it.
wave.
That's it.
And we pursued it.
Yeah.
Whereas there were shortboards before that, they were occasional little freaks.
Mm.
But from this era, we were determined to start surfing like George.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly couldn't do it on that foley with the big ride tail.
No.
I remember once I rode it at Fairy Bower, which is a real powerful wave, you know, and I come just locked in a track and I'm flying down this wave and there was a guy paddled out and I just fucking
Straight over it.
straight over him, bang. And he did, it was Russell Hughes. It was the first time I met him and he didn't get upset. And I thought, geez, he must be a good bloke.
He come from Queensland, he had no idea.
Yeah.
So you were local.
Yeah.
You ruled.
Yeah, that's right too, yeah.
I mean, there's another advantage that George had is that he was on his knees.
Well,
So
that's
his
right.
center of gravity was like so much
And you
lower.
know, some old shapers would say, some older surfers would say, oh, you won't be able to do it because George is on his knees. But then, as they did it, then technique started to come in.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, and look at where we are now with technique. It's that little stance.
Yeah.
I remember when we were at the Sky Shop, Dave Smythe come there to work,
Yeah.
and he'd never surfed, but he was a golf pro. And he said, all sports technique. If I can learn the technique of surfing, I'll have fun straight away. And we'd sit around and he'd talk about how you hold your stance for a golf swing, which was those foot across like that, not like that. And I went, oh wow, that's early Wayne Lynch. With the feet across the board. Gary surfed like that too.
Yeah.
Other guys surfed, but Wayne took it to the hand motions as well.
Yeah.
And that was like the technique that we use today, but more refined again, which is fantastic, you know. Because it's led to all, you know, these kids winning gold medals now in the skateboards.
Yeah,
It's that
yeah.
same technique,
Exactly.
and that's where it's come from. Surfing, the skateboards is too. Midget Farrelly skateboard after he won Makaha.
Makaha, yeah.
Yeah,
I had a job at his factory.
Well,
we're taking over.
Can I have one thing?
Yeah, no, go.
The music.
oh, the music.
Oh,
You know, the music is Danny
sorry.
Arberg is the singer of Crumple Car, which is such a beautiful little song about the ship. And you're cruising in the V8. I cruised through Santa Barbara with George in the car. Did you go for a ride in that thing?
In the what?
And when you were in the States with George, you
Yeah.
go in the V12 Cadillac?
Not that one. I was in the cop car with the
Oh
lights
yeah,
on the
me
side.
too. That one's great.
Oh, did 160 old Dodge. And it was the same colour as the cop's car.
Yeah.
And it still had the two lights on the side.
You could point them on.
Yeah.
And we were coming out of a concert at like a. It was dun, 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 dun. That was the what's that? Anyway, really cool band, and we're coming. Everyone is passing dope around and popping acid, and we pulled out onto the freeway in George's cop car after the show.
Yeah.
And everyone was hitchhiking, which you're not allowed to do on the freeway. And
Running and hiding.
dope.
Didn't want to get busted.
They were flashing the light on them all. Eating their way hot stuff.
So funny.
Okay, but the guitarist, Danny Arberg, he did the music. But the guys with him, the guy on the organ was named Dennis Dragon. And
No,
he's
then it's Daryl.
Daryl.
Daryl playing keyboards.
I thought,
Darren. Doug.
Doug Dragon.
Daryl, Doug, and Dennis.
Captain.
Dragon. And
Captain
then-
and Tennille. You know that band?
Captain and Tennille.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's him.
that's what. Yeah, well, at that time
Captain on the keyboard.
of this here, at that time, Daryl was playing with the Beach Boys, and he used to wear a captain's hat, and they always called him. The Beach Boys called him Captain Keyboards, and then in the early '70s, into the '70s, he took a job on this musical. And there was a lady in the musical that played keyboards too and sung incredible, and her name was Tony Tennille. And then they ended up, they were the Captain of Tennille, and they had a real lot of hits through the 70s. They had their own TV show and all. So you can see the class of the musician there. The dad, George, visited the house. He was a famous composer. He had gold records along the way.
We're just getting started. This is going to go. I hope you brought a blanket and a thermos. Might be here for brekkie. Can we turn the heating up? What happened to summer?
But then also we must mention that Danny Aberg's brother, Kemp Aberg, was in all the old surf movies at Rincon. He was the incredible nose rider. And he'd come and stayed at Angary, remember that?
Yes.
And he stayed with Peter Pike and he played guitar for him, and Peter said he could pack any hall.
Yes.
That was his brother. A lot of Californian
professional
very good musicians. Yeah.
Okay, but they were incredible musicians.
Yeah.
Wasn't it a pumping soundtrack? Just great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
You're gonna wrap it up, are you?
Well, I'm not gonna wrap.
Any more questions?
What's that?
Have you got any more questions?
No, man, I'm knackered.
What about you guys?
No, just keep going.
Yeah, that's what I reckon. You guys chat amongst yourselves. I just flew in from Nashville this morning, so I'm a bit tired.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank Simon for getting here. Thank you. Fantastic. Our favourite son.
It's an absolute treat for me to stand up here with these guys and listen to these stories. And you know,
I've got a wife
you guys have both given me a lot of pleasure and inspiration through my life. Thank you.
Okay. Just one thing before you go, Simon.